While Emmett fell asleep, he closed his eyes and pictured a boundless field. If there was a way to see something in particular while he dreamed, this was it. His thoughts rotated about the key features of the place. It was vast, filled with clover and yellow flowers, and there was a mysterious old woman there. He could recall her appearance vividly from the time that he dreamt of her before, the night the werewolf bit him. A pleasant stillness teased the were-bunny while he focused, tempting him with distractions just on the edge of sleep. He couldn't help but mull over the feeling of being in his bed, comfortably cozied up next to the same werewolf that left a massive scar on his shoulder. Eventually, his eyes failed to open again. Through Emmett's recently practiced second sight, he viewed the wolf with his fur the darkest black Emmett has ever seen. He held on to Josh's head when suddenly he felt a cool breeze against his back. Emmett felt around for his blanket, and when he couldn't find it, he stood up to close the window the breeze came from. Now, looking out of the window, he saw the field of clover and large-leaf yellow flowers he pictured. He realized then that he was sleeping, dreaming. The sun set a long time ago and left the terrain illuminated only by the full moon. The clear atmosphere gave no resistance to the bright white glow, and one would need not a pair of nocturnal eyes to find one's way around. The were-bunny stared deeply into the field, hoping to find the old woman again, wishing for her to be there. The time got away from him, and he heard the bedroom door open and a woman call out his name. "Emmett?" The were-bunny turned and gasped. He remembered his decency and picked up a blanket off the floor to cover himself. He wished he had some proper clothes so he could be more presentable. He saw the old woman again. "It's you. I came here looking for you, but I don't know who you are." Emmett bit his lip and looked at nothing in particular. "I think we've met before." "We have. It was brief, but I see from your physiology that I left quite an impression." The woman held on to Emmett's paw, and the were-bunny could not recoil away. "I didn't give you a proper introduction. My name is Penelope. I used to be a witch in this place, but at the moment I'm a lingering spirit. And you," she smiled, "have been so kind as to feed my dog, my familiar. Of course, you're not the only one, nor are you the first one, but you have given the spirits of this area reason to like you. They have seen you, and they seem to think you have the markings of a good and kind witch. Such a kindness they have been sorely lacking. I need a favor from you," she continued. "See the cause of your husband's transformations, and every other werewolf has something to do with my familiar. Have you taken a look at your husband's spirit, particularly when he is transformed?" "Yes, I have," Emmett recalled. "I saw 3 things. I saw something human, something I don't know. It seemed threatening, but I can't put my finger on it," he trailed off. "And the 3rd thing?" the witch quizzed. "It was a dog. It resembled my dog, well, his spirit." The witch's eyes and mouth popped open. "Oh, so you have a familiar of your own. I would love to meet him." "He's actually the one that told me to talk to you. He seems to know who you are." The woman finally released Emmett's paw. "I should thank him then. But first, this favor I am asking you. Every werewolf has some version of that nasty thing you saw in your husband. It's a spiritual infection. If the illness takes its course, The repercussions would be far more severe than lycanthropy. Emmett shrugged. Being a werewolf can be manageable. The witch nodded. Doubtless, as you have seen and demonstrated. But I believe with your talents and experience, you could be helpful to someone who has been long looking for a cure. Once there is a cure, my familiar will return. My familiar will no longer need to treat them, manage their cancer. Free from that burden, she would return to me, and then after all of these years, I could move on from this world. Numerous questions fought for precedence in Emmett's mind. Is there any way I can tell that this is real? I am dreaming after all. I have an idea that may satisfy. This will also help when you meet my father. How will I know when I've found him? Emmett asked. The old witch gestured to a chair, which walked backward from the table. As the werebenny sat down, a mug from the table approached, walked with dainty appendages, and sat down with a ceramic tap on the wooden table. The kettle moved closer as well, looking a bit clumsy and top-heavy with the feet of a crow beneath it. It tipped its head inquisitively, the handle flitting and displaying alertness. It bowed and filled the cup with hot herbal tea. Penelope sat down across from Emmett, who was looking back at her, a wide grin on her face as she watched the objects move on their own. The cup and the kettle, they felt left out. I know someone else is feeling the same, but they tend to suffer in silence. She looked at something else and held her hands out. Come on now, you can make it. One of the covers of a leatherback book popped open trepidatiously before a pair of frog's legs launched the book into the woman's hands. She praised the living book for the jump and placed it on its side. Well, the woman said, while you're here, I will teach you about witchcraft. Emmett sipped his tea, much to the delight of the spidery cup. It was early morning, and Raymond Harper carried a cup of coffee in each hand as he shut this car door. The gentle September air still held onto the remaining wisps of fog. The sun shone onto it and onto Harper's face, the warm golden rays highlighting his recent tan. Though his hearing was not as sensitive as when he was a vampire, he couldn't miss the sound of a car approaching and slowing down in front of his house. It was a white sedan, not exactly the kind of vehicle you'd want in this part of the country. It would be easily lost in the snow, but then again, who could say when the next true winter would come? Two figures emerged from the car. Both the doctor recognized from the hospital he used to work for. One was a magpie, Maxwell. The doctor recalled the young man's medical chart and his repeatedly broken wing. Thinking about it caused sympathy pain to run through Harper's body, from his neck to his pelvis, a feeling he never had as a vampire. Then there was a red-haired, strong-looking, middle-aged man. His jacket had a pin on it with the ranger insignia. Werewolf hunters. The doctor couldn't be completely sure, but he resembled Logan's biological father, the man who Raymond told of Logan's death. Harper hoped, if he was correct, that he didn't remember the doctor. "Hello there, sir," the ranger called out. "Are you busy right now?" "Actually, yes. I have a lot to do," the former vampire replied, suddenly wishing that he had his old vampiric powers. "Who are you guys?" "I'm an agent with the Ranger Association, but feel free to call me Diego. This is my assistant Max. He's the brains of the operation." The feathers on Maxwell's neck puffed a bit as he stifled a laugh. "I would like to talk to Logan if he's home. We are hoping that he can give us a character reference on one of his friends. We're talking about the one that he gives a ride up north every month." Raymond thought, "I'll see if he's at home. I can't remember if he works today." The former vampire turned and balanced 2 cups of coffee in one arm while he fiddled with the doorknob, and the agent called out to him. "It would mean a lot to us and his friend and his mom if Logan could help out." "Yes, and I'm sure Logan would be happy to do so, if he could," the doctor said as he opened the door and closed it behind him. Maxwell had gone to the car and came back with a couple of cups of coffee. He chuckled as he looked at the brand. "We must have just been right behind him in the drive-thru. We went to the same place, and we weren't even following him." The bird looked at the agent, who didn't speak. "Hey, you have to be okay. You have to put on a brave face, all right?" Diego took a long breath and adjusted his stance, still quiet. "I know he's home. He's been on the house Wi-Fi recently. Would you like to know what he's been up to?" The bird smirked. "Please. I don't need to know what he looks up in private." "It's not what you think. He's looking for another job. Looks like he doesn't like serving burgers very much," said Maxwell. "I can't say I blame him. A smart kid like him is probably bored out of his mind. A part of me wishes he was dumb. When I heard that he was running a cash register for a fast food joint, I thought there's no way he's smart enough to have killed all those people. It's not a good day, Max. The best outcome is this big waste of time." Raymond opened the door again and called to the couple waiting. "Would you like to come in?" "You bet," the ranger said, as he entered and removed his shoes. Max didn't wear shoes, but he managed to walk on the hardwood floor without making so much of a noise. "I gotta say, I'm impressed with how well you kept the place. This is over 100 years old. Have you done a lot of work on this place, Mr. Harper? But feel free to call me Raymond. And yes, I have done my fair share of upkeep, though the materials are getting hard to come by these days. Of course, there are cheaper materials out there, but you get what you pay for." "I hear that," Diego said, as he heard the sounds of footsteps descending the staircase. A boy appeared. Well, he would be a fully grown man at this point. The agent immediately recognized him as one of the unknown people he encountered at the werewolf resort, the one whose blood matched his son's. The son, he thought, no, he knew, was dead, until he found out otherwise. "Hi, my dad says you wanted to talk to me about Dominic," Logan said. He wore a pair of blue denim jeans, a brown leather belt, and a gray summer hoodie. His hair was a bit on the long side, with a telltale curve of being tied back. "He told me about the change. He doesn't remember anything, and I wasn't there." Raymond sat down at the dining room table and placed a cup of coffee in front of Logan, prompting a "Thank you, Dad," from the man. While Logan sipped his coffee, the Rangers did the same. The bird looked at the agent, who was opening his notebook. "While he's getting ready," Maxwell said, "I'll introduce myself. We'll go around the table. My name is Maxwell Bosch. I work as an assistant as well as consulting and profile work. Oh, fun fact, I am only a third-generation American and only the second to earn a college degree, so that's pretty neat." He gestured to Logan. "Would you like to go next?" "Yeah, sure. I'm Logan Harper. I work at Burger Wolf, but I'm looking for something different right now. I don't have a lot of work experience, unfortunately. My fun fact, I own a lot of scarves, probably more scarves than shirts." This got a chuckle from the table before the doctor started. "My name is Raymond Harper. I am Logan's adoptive father. I used to be an emergency room trauma doctor, but I have recently left. It's just an incredibly stressful job." Max gasped slightly. "I remember you. I came in with a broken wing." This made the doctor nod. I thought I'd recognize you, but you know, with the doctor-patient confidentiality. If you don't mind, how is your wing doing? It's doing well. I'm flying again, so that's neat. I'm glad to hear, the doctor said, looking at the last person to introduce themselves. The ranger inhaled and decided to bite the bullet. My name is Diego Martinez. I am an investigating agent with the Ranger Association. I have 2 children, one of which I lost to a werewolf, or so I was led to believe, for decades. Sir, Max interjected in vain. Hold on. Here's my fun fact. I've dedicated the last 20 years of my life advocating for the better treatment of werewolves. He laughed. Which I'm sure is just my attempt to atone for my choices that led to your demise, Logan, except it didn't. Sir, real quick, remember what we're here for, the bird said. We're asking people who know Dominic well what kind of person he is. As you might know, Logan interrupted, rising to his feet. I don't know who you are, but you are not my father. My father is dead. That's the whole reason I was adopted. My father... Logan bit and clenched his fist. He shot the werewolf that attacked me. Many times. The werewolf killed him, dying of exsanguination. So I don't know who you... Logan. The doctor stopped him. Everyone. Let's all get on the same page. Once everyone settled down, the doctor spoke about the werewolf attack. He wasn't there, but he recalled the way Logan's original family described it. He told them about the unsanctioned therapist that helped Logan make a turnaround about his lycanthropy. Logan, you were the only one wounded from that werewolf. You stepped in front of your sister when the werewolf preyed on her. The boy had no memory of this. Your father was quick. He shot the beast until he emptied his gun, fired 6 bullets into the werewolf's brain and heart, slaying them before they could take a second swipe. A person of lesser resolve would have hesitated and allowed the werewolf to finish you. The doctor then looked at the agent. Logan wrote these things into his diary. That's how I know. The diary changed, however, a few years ago when I met another vampire, someone who offers therapy to werewolves like your son. Now hold on, Diego said. You exposed him to a vampire? Mr. Martinez, consider for a moment how you think about werewolves. They're dangerous, this is true, but they are also people. Generally, they cannot be blamed for their lycanthropy. You know this. This is also true of vampires. We are capable of good things, and Logan's condition is one of those good things. 17 years he struggled with the fearsome beast. Anyone would be afraid. This vampire I met helped your son heal. He changed his memories because they were too painful. Dad, do we have to talk about that? Logan's arms were around his waist. The doctor sighed. You've already told your truth. This is what you remember because you had your memories altered. You did that so that you could live without fear of your father finding you. And why would he be afraid of that? The agent asked. Mr. Martinez, you may be a changed man as you say you are, but his last memory of you, you were sending him away to one of those camps. And he would not have survived that, not in the condition he was in. The agent clenched his jaw and looked down at the table, quietly tilting his head to and fro. Logan, is this true? Were you really living in fear? Logan didn't know how to answer. He already disliked this man for his association with the Rangers, the same organization that worked with the police to bag and tag werewolves like him. The reason he had to live quietly for as long as he could remember But now he saw the anguish of the man, his biological father, the solemn regret barely tamped down by a professional patina. Sir, what he said about the therapist is completely correct. I remember living in fear, but I can't remember why. Logan, Dad? The werewolf interjected. Do you like the person you are now? The agent sat back in his chair and pondered the question. I suppose I do. A lot better than the way I used to be. I can tell you that. Maxwell butted in, slapping the table with a wing. Buddy, this is not the same person that sent you away. People don't even recognize him anymore. Heck, you didn't even recognize him until you said something. Isn't that right? This is the only ranger in the organization that took time to see the werewolf resort the day it opened and talk to the chairman. Not to lecture or threaten him, but to make himself a resource for this man. He hoped for his success. What was that guy's name? Help me out. Isaiah, the ranger replied. Yeah, Isaiah. Anyway, I saw Mr. Martinez's home office, and there is a memorial plaque on the wall near his desk. It's for you. And you want to know something? There is dust on the frames for his bachelor's degrees on the same wall, but no dust on that memorial for you. I know it doesn't make up for what happened, but if you're looking for a picture of contrition and repentance, here you go, bud. Here it is. Logan didn't know what to say, so he just looked at the vampire who adopted him. Raymond sighed. It's a lot to take in. I don't expect you to understand everything overnight. The werewolf looked across the table at his father. The thing is, I missed out on a lot of life because of me being a werewolf. I've been so desperate to get that time back, I even thought I could use magic to get things back to the way they were. But, not to identify with Candide. I'm starting to wonder if this was for the best. He swallowed hard. I never went hungry. Maybe lonely, but I made it this long. I just keep speculating that things would have been better if I went straight home from the hospital. But that wouldn't have worked out for me either. You were not equipped with the knowledge that you knew back then. The treatment facility would have been worse. Isaiah spent 5 years in one of those places, and he doesn't talk about it. It just makes him angry. The agent raised his finger to ask Logan a question. Are you talking about the chairman at the resort? Yeah, that's him. That's kind of neat, since you already met him. It saves me the trouble of introducing him to you, since we're dating now. The agent narrowed his eyes, prompting Logan to scoff. Oh, I'm so sorry to disappoint you by being in a romantic relationship with another man. That's not a problem, Diego replied, shaking his head. I'm just curious about Isaiah because he denied ever going to a facility, even being a werewolf, when I met him. If you were a werewolf and you were being questioned by a werewolf hunter, wouldn't you deny it to save your life? But I'm not a threat to him. We can't tell that. In fact, wearing that insignia on your chest gives us reason to be suspicious. You can say it's a symbol of your service to the community, to the organization, but that organization has done and keeps doing terrible things to werewolves. That symbol is not a promise of safety, it's a promise of violence. You probably think it's a scumbag move to lie to you like he did, but it's really just self-defense. Logan, I'll wear this because not wearing it would be deceptive. It's my intention to give people who I talk to the advantage of knowing who I'm with. I understand why a werewolf would want to lie in most circumstances. That he was at a sanctuary for werewolves, one which he had a hand in creating. He must be aware of how secure the place is. And it would not have been a surprise if he was a werewolf. It's a werewolf resort. What danger is there for him? It's a force of habit, I guess. Logan shrugged. Maxwell leaned in and addressed the doctor. Excuse me, may I ask you something? I don't see why not. You already have. Raymond replied. We can tell you're a dad. He chuckled. How many years has Logan been in your care? The former vampire thought. It's 20 years now, almost 21. That's quite a while. And can you confirm that in that time he has never been to another illegal species treatment facility with the exception of the werewolf resort? The doctor nodded. He's never been to one of those places. Okay. And if you don't mind, would you describe Logan's physical appearance when he's transformed into his werewolf form? Certainly. He's surprisingly large. I had to give him the master bedroom because the one time he transformed in the guest room, he accidentally crushed the dresser. Logan scoffed. Dad, you didn't need to tell him that. What? I thought it was helpful. Anyway, he has white and silver fur, depending on the time of year. Max wrote the answer down. Well, that explains the lack of ceiling fan. The bird pointed to the ceiling where a light fixture was installed. I grew up in a pretty similar home, and we removed the ceiling fans and replaced them with lights. We birds are pretty sensitive to a breeze. That, and I accidentally flew into one once. It's kind of funny how my dad explained that this is the reason why we don't fly in the house. Like, yeah, Dad, I get it now. I figured the same thing happened with Logan being as tall as he is. The doctor nodded again. He never hit it, but it was a matter of time, you know. And good thinking. So, I am happy to inform you that Logan does not fit the description of someone we're looking for. By any chance, have either of you encountered a much shorter werewolf, red and black fur? Logan's face changed to concern. I feel like I have, but I can't remember who it was, he hissed inwardly as he lied. They seemed to be describing Isaiah. Sorry. That's fine. Just do us a big favor and just keep that on your radar. Logan promised he would. There were bound to be other werewolves similar to Isaiah, he thought. He put the idea in the back of his mind. But he would be in no hurry to start doing the Rangers' investigative work. Arpej stood in his laboratory, poring over notes he'd written about the werewolves he'd been treating. His notes were written by hand since the dialect he preferred to write in was so dead and esoteric that he couldn't find a computer program capable of writing it. There were a few applications that claimed to write in ancient, but he found the attempt to be inaccurate and frustrating. He wrote out pages of rules and syntax for the language and laid them out on display in preparation for the arrival of a professional computer scientist, and, just as important, a dragon like himself. The favor he needed from them, he thought, could only be entrusted to an immortal of sound judgment and discretion. The dragon, once satisfied with his display, exited the laboratory, climbed the stone steps to the outside of his cavern, just one of a few entrances to his fairly modernized cave. Arpej walked through the garden and set himself down on a rock formation that served as a balcony. He would surely see his visitor flying in. In the meantime, he looked at the forest below. The deciduous trees dotted among the evergreens and yellowing and rusting leaves. Many of the plants in his garden would be ready to pick soon. He enjoyed the stillness and cleared his mind until he heard a voice from the garden. Sir, there is a rabbit man who wishes to visit. They asked for you by name. He is accompanied by a small black dog and a red fox. He says he bears a message from Penelope. Arpej stood up and walked. Take me to this rabbit man. The brisk pace of his feet displayed a drive that his voice concealed. He made it through the garden, down the stone steps, through his laboratory, and finally to the front room where Emmett stood and looked back at Arpej. He noticed the rabbit man's animals and found something oddly familiar about them. This rabbit, however, was new. Hello there. When I heard a rabbit was visiting me, I did not expect him to be so tall. I heard you have a message for me. May I have your name? Emmett reached down to the fox and picked him up in his hands, cradling the red ball of fluff in his arms. "Sir, Penelope advised me not to give you my name." "Of course. That sounds like advice she would give. If you know this, then you must also know I may not exercise power over your name if I promise not to." Emmett hesitated. "Very well, messenger of Penelope. What is the message?" "Sir, I am the message. I am a witch like your daughter. I have unique abilities that can help curtail the spread of lycanthropy." "I see. She's quite the fountain of optimism. On the border of delusional, if I'm being frank. Do you have a way of proving your talents to me, messenger?" "I do, sir," the were-bunny replied and looked down at the fox in his arms. "Are you ready?" he asked the fox before firmly grasping the nape of its neck. He dangled the animal in one hand, and as he did this, the tail, limbs, and head compressed. Its features eroded in just a moment, and the fur retracted and left a brown leather bag where there was once a living fox. The transformation caused Arpej to crack a smile. "Bravo! Did you learn that enchantment from her?" "I did, sir." "Please, call me Arpej." The dragon reached for the bag and looked inside. "My goodness, I haven't seen these for centuries." He reached inside and pulled out something pearlescent and oblong. "Did she tell you what these are?" Emmett shrugged. "Penelope only said to hand them to you. She said you'd recognize them. Do you, Mr. Arpej?" She was correct. "I do recognize them." Arpej beckoned Emmett into his lab and started to examine the contents of the leather bag with a magnifying glass. "These things form in a sac, an organ unique to dragons. They are like pearls, but throughout the structure there is a very flammable gas. Each calcification embeds more and more gas and compresses what's already inside. By the time it gets this large, there is bound to be a pretty dangerous amount of explosive liquid. That is, unless..." The dragon passed the magnifying glass to the bunny, who took it and looked at the object where Arpej pointed. "Unless you have a crack. These are called seeds of flame. I'm sure you can tell why. This is what allows dragons to spit fire. It's a shame they went bad. Still, it's clear you really did speak of my daughter. Your dog, is that another enchanted object?" "Oh, no." Emmett looked up from the magnifying glass. "That's my familiar." "Oh, I see. I've met one like him before. She had a much larger physical form. Large even for a wolf, zealously protective. People who thought themselves very important wanted that creature for themselves. But they took grievous offense when the hellhound Primrose declined to protect them and instead protected a meek, unimportant woman with no ties to nobility. The audacity. They consider this woman arrogant and out of her rightful God-fearing place, shamelessly ignoring her duties as a woman, tending to gardens and wives instead of a husband." "There are a lot of people who still think like that," Emmett lamented. "Much less overtly these days. I felt more justified using fae or air magic back then. After all, I was no worse than them. These days I use it to study lycanthropy. Which reminds me, what are you here to do?" "You've shown me that earth magic is not dead. That's encouraging. Are you seeking lessons? Can I offer some insight into werewolves?" "I've lived with one for a while. He's my husband." This shocked even the stoic Arpej. "Are you not in constant danger, being so intimately close to a werewolf?" "At first, yes," Emmett explained. "But we worked it out. Rocky, get down from there," he scolded the dog, who made his way to the display. He was perched on a chair, eyeing the writing there. "Rocky, come here." "I'm trying to read this," the bratty familiar replied. It's got parts of a song I remember. Emmett looked at the display and then back at Arpej, only for the dog to explain the dragon can't hear him. Rocky says that this is some kind of song, or part of one. A song? The dragon pursed his lips and looked at the dog. I happen to have a musician coming soon. Would you stay and offer your dog's insight? Emmett shrugged, not amused that the dragon was more interested in his dog than him. He could see why Penelope was so estranged from him. Emmett lost all doubt this person was inhuman, since Arpej passed as a human as well as Emmett passed for a witch. Just fucking barely. The werebunny stayed in the dragon's company, though he couldn't say he enjoyed it. They waited for the arrival of his associate, another dragon, but they never did. The sun began to set, and Rocky nosed against Emmett's paw. Mr. Dragon, I have to head out. It's getting late for me. If you need sleep, I have a room you can use. That's very generous, but my husband is waiting for me. He was pretty apprehensive about me coming here. Arpej grabbed the leather sack that once contained the seeds of flame. Well, at least take some potions with you. He talked to himself as he placed several bottles into a bag. Emmett thought he was supposed to be listening, but he couldn't keep up with the fast rambling. When the dragon returned the bag, it was filled to the brim with assorted small bottles. He was still speaking fast when he tried to describe what each of them were, but eventually he waved his hand and told the werebunny they were all labeled. Emmett thanked the man and left with his dog. Arpej saw him out and closed the door. He thought to call the other dragon on their cell phone, but as soon as he turned around, he heard a woman's voice. He seems nice. Maybe don't chase this one away. He followed the sound and found a tall brunette woman looking over the display he set out for her. Tiffany, you should have let me know you were here. If I had, I would not have heard what that dog had to say about music. I would have interfered with serendipity. Does it make any sense to you? I have a theory. She placed her laptop on the table next to the display. Think about a children's song. They don't know what Ring Around the Rosie means, it's just part of the game. The Hell Song of Primrose. She doesn't sing it to be heard, but to sing. The original purpose of the song was for the benefit of the singer, for the fun and play. Humans are the same way. Have you ever seen someone talk with their hands, even when one of their hands is missing? It's like that. Well, that's certainly an interesting theory. Maybe we should have talked up the dog a little more. Maybe, but I'm finding something. She showed Arpej her computer screen and pointed out a pattern. See, if the song is written like this, it's sung in perpetuity. What you have isn't the song itself. It's the recipe for how to sing it forever. I think Primrose did not know how long it would take to beat down the malignants, so it chose to broadcast this across all time. The thing is, the woman stared at her notes. What is it, Tiffany? She has a view of all time and space, right? So long as she's not here. If she saw that her song would be needed forever, then she would have come back and tried again. She's not here, so she must have seen that it stops eventually. That's beyond me. I could never wrap my head around non-existent physics. The brunette chuckled. Lucky for us, I have a PhD in non-existent physics. Before we get any deeper into our research, would you like to grab something to eat and a drink or two? I would love to catch up with you if you don't mind. I wouldn't mind. I'm just shocked to see that you've become such a socialite. Only around a total nerd like you. Dominic's eyes pointed ahead as he gripped the steering wheel, mentally reminding himself to make small adjustments. Everyone else made driving look really easy, but Dominic feared a collision at any moment. Logan assured the other werewolf that he was doing all right. It just takes practice. Before you know it, you'll wonder how you were ever worried about it. You're already doing better than when you started the trip. You think so? Yeah. You're staying in your lane and you're keeping a safe distance from the car in front of us, though... What's wrong? Well, this guy's been doing like 55 and a 60. We could pass him on the left side. Dominic struggled with the maneuver, but he also wanted to go faster, even if it was only another 5 miles an hour. He thought over the steps while he gave himself yet more distance. The new driver checked his mirror and blind spot before slowly moving into the lane, and he pushed past the driver in front of him. He grinned at Logan, who reminded the other werewolf that they were going to have to move back into the original lane. People are going to get upset if you drive the speed limit in the fast lane. Yeah, I don't want people to get upset with me. Dominic's tone came across as lightly facetious, but the silence that followed told Logan there was something deeper. The passenger mentally hemmed and hawed about how to approach the problem, recognizing shame that stopped Dominic from talking about his home life. Logan thought the driver could use a little appreciation. The other werewolves are going to be really glad to see you. They were asking about you. Thanks, but I don't think that was true. Dominic's gaze never left the road. No, really, Isaiah asked about you. He was probably relieved when I didn't show up. Dominic scrubbed some plaque from one of his canine teeth with his tongue, and the disgusted expression it gave him felt natural and light. Most of them don't really want me around. They just feel obligated to put up with me until I don't go there anymore. There was something dark in that statement that Logan couldn't ignore. Dom, what would happen to make it so you would stop coming to the resort? The driver didn't answer. Dom? The vehicle came to a hard stop that made the passenger's body push against the seatbelt as he clicked and stopped Logan's body from moving forward more than it did. Dominic looked as taken back from this sudden stop as Logan was. Sorry, I didn't mean to brake so hard. A honk from behind made Dominic more rushed. It's okay, it takes a little getting used to. The rest of the drive was noticeably quiet. When they arrived at the parking lot for the resort, Dominic made a comment about how the two of them made it alive by some miracle. I think you really undersell yourself. You're not as bad as you think. The driver grabbed his luggage and passed his car keys back to Logan. Even as they arrived, Dominic felt torn. He liked Logan, but not when he was prying into everything he said. It reminded him of when he was with the illegal species treatment facility. The therapy leaders took everything he said and weaponized it against him at every opportunity. His thoughts led him back to the helpless anger he felt back then, and he locked up his mouth while he held on to his desire for him to be wrong. Come on, look, people are already here. Logan put his hand on Dominic's back and gave him a little pressure to keep him walking. Logan noticed new faces before recognizing his dad's. They seemed so out of place to him, but yet so comfortable. Maybe it was because they were both wearing short-sleeved shirts. It still surprised Logan to see the man who raised him, the vampire, out in the sun. The man's new farmer's tan told Logan it was time to roll with the punches. Oh, but his biological father. Out of his suit, he looked more like the man Logan remembered. The man who entertained the boy with stories of his exploits as a police officer. The two men saw Logan and waved. And that's when a third person, a tall woman with wavy red hair, stood up and ran to meet Dominic. She called to the confused, heavy-set werewolf and cried, "Logan, it's me, Sarah!" While Dominic awkwardly hugged back, feeling just a tad more appreciated than he felt before. Logan froze in dumbfoundedness, his first thought about his little sister wondering why she got to be so tall. He cleared his throat. Actually, I'm Logan. Oh! She looked back at Dominic, finding him not the least bit upset. Come here. She wrapped her arms around him and drew his body into hers. He felt her warmth in stark contrast to the cold air. Silently, she pressed her fingers into Logan's back through his hoodie. He hugged her back and looked forward blankly in this surreal moment. Her body twitched suddenly. Once, twice, and before a third time she managed to peel herself off of her brother and turn. Dominic asked if she was okay while she strayed and waved away her embarrassment while she composed herself. She was soon joined by Diego. This sucks, she sniffed. First thing my brother finds out about me is I'm super awkward. Just great. No, first thing I notice is you're really tall. You're almost Isaiah's height. Who's Isaiah? Hi. Logan's boyfriend appeared from outside of the woman's peripheral. Yeah, you are almost as tall as me. The man leaned in and gave Logan a kiss on the lips, making him blush in front of his family. I'm Isaiah, Logan's boyfriend. You know, I might be interested in a newer model. Thanks, but I'm taken. As is he, Logan hissed. This made Isaiah laugh and beckoned the group to a table where Maxwell sat and sipped on a floral tiki cocktail, looking comically bright juxtaposed with his otherwise grave and stern decorum. Dr. Harper sat down across from Logan and soon explained what he was doing there. Good evening. How is my little moonbeam doing? It surprised the werewolf to hear him say this in public, with his actual father nearby. I'm doing okay. How are you all here? I didn't think the place was open to guests, at least guests that are not werewolves. Isaiah replied, Everyone here is somehow on contract, official business. Really? Raymond nodded. I spoke of your condition to the owner. He was very interested in your ability to shift without the full moon. Dad, what happened to doctor-patient confidentiality? I hope you'll forgive me when you find out how fruitful our conversation was. Do you recall when you were a child in the hospital? Specifically, do you recall meeting a vampire there? Logan knew he was talking about himself, but wanted to keep the identity a secret. Yeah, I remember. He helped me recover. He did. He used his magic on you, his vampiric power. Do you recall what he did? Logan thought and looked up at the ceiling. He gave me an irresistible command. That's what he called it. He said, survive. Why do you ask? Well, you aren't the first werewolf to have this ability, to trigger your own shift. Dominic nearly went to the bar at the resort, but decided to stick around and hear what the doctor had to say. You are, however, the first to do this with remarkable frequency and survive. He put emphasis on the last word. Diego spoke up. I'm still having trouble coming to terms with the fact that the doctor that saw you was a vampire. I feel like the hospital should have at least said something. Warned me, right? He turned to Dr. Harper for affirmation. I suppose the point could be argued. If you would be so kind, the owner would like to have a look at you while you're shifted. He happens to be an old friend of mine. I've talked about him before. He's the one that gave me my start in medicine. Logan narrowed his lips and looked at Diego uncomfortably. Are you okay if he uses magic? I am if you are, the man replied. It's your call. Sarah looked just as uncomfortable. If I don't want to use magic, is that okay? I don't want to be judgmental, but it's not something I want to do. Logan deferred to Isaiah to answer. The tall werewolf nodded. Oh yeah, that's not a problem at all. If you see anything with funny writing on it, that's ancient. If you leave it be, you'll be fine. Are you totally sure? I'm certain, but my magic teacher's here today. He wouldn't miss out on such an event. Dominic raised his hand. Hey, is there something going on? Is this a special moon? I'm really lost on the significance. A man's voice sounded from behind the heavyset werewolf. Dominic, I thought I heard you. It was Brad alongside his wife Heather, both werewolves. Hun, this is the guy I was talking about. Dominic felt self-conscious and prepared to hear about whatever crime he committed. Heather's face changed rapidly, eyes opened wide. Oh my gosh, Dom, you're a legend! You have to have a pair of brass eggs to skip treatment just so you can confront your shitty stepdad in your werewolf form, no less. Brad's wide smile looked genuine as he gestured to the tiki bar. Mad props, my dude. Let's get you a drink. You gotta tell us what happened. I've been dying to hear from the man himself. Logan's feet felt light as he followed the two. Well, I gotta say, I don't remember much. That's fine. Tell us what you remember. Logan watched the interaction quietly, feeling validated in his claim that Dominic was indeed loved. He turned his attention back to the table and realized that there was another face. It was an elder sheep, and he was talking to Isaiah and Sarah. So, unpacking the questions within the question, the ram said, Is it safe? Will you know when it's happening? Will you have any control in the matter? I'd be lying if I said that these risks didn't exist. But you are at no additional risk at any time. You are just as safe here as you are lying in bed at home. Sarah nodded and looked to the sheep. Thanks. I appreciate your candor. The group continued to socialize while the sun was still out. Diego and Isaiah had a much more relaxed conversation and got to know each other better. Sarah did the same with Logan and the doctor who raised him. Soon the resort served dinner. It was always something hearty. Werewolves needed something that stuck to their ribs. Tonight's dinner featured fried polenta, palm hearts, something they called voodoo meatballs with a Cajun mirepoix, and caramel apple cobbler for dessert. There was plenty of everything, with a member of the staff telling the guests to get their fill. A reliable way to have a bad shift is to spend it hungry, she said. The sun began to set and the owner entered along with a few staff members to get everyone's attention. Normally, they would come out and tell the Lycans that it was time to prepare for the shift, but this time the owner had something to say. Good evening, everyone. I'm so pleased to see you all again on this monthly gathering. Dominic, we missed you last time. So glad to see you're all right. Bob, here for another month. You're looking forward to another shift, I'm sure? Logan. Oh, it's a tragedy I didn't meet you sooner. You have a part to play in all of this, should you rise to the occasion. And what an occasion it is. We are joined tonight by a diverse group of experts in their fields. I will go ahead and introduce them. He gestured to each person. First, we have a witch and messenger of one of the late greats, Penelope. You may have heard of her in books. He's made the brave decision to dine with at least 24 werewolves while appearing as a rabbit man. He shares his name with no one. I refer to him simply as Messenger. Logan recognized the rabbit man as Emmett, the werebunny, husband of his friend Josh, the man he'd bitten by mistake. Emmett had his dog with him, laying in a sling one might use if their arm was in a cast. Emmett wore the sling and kept the black dog at head-scratching height, while he treated the dog to bits of fried polenta here and there. I would now like to introduce you to a friend of mine, the lead expert in our case study. He is recently retired, but look, he just won't stop working. We talked about this, Raymond. Let's give a warm welcome to Doctor of Trauma Medicine, Raymond Harper. Now, he's not one to brag, but there are many people alive today because of him. The last statement made Maxwell nod to himself and stretch out his wings a bit. Tonight, we are also joined by a man who spent the last 2 decades writing Congress and laying down the legal arguments that allowed this resort to be constructed. The toughness it requires to fight that uphill battle is incredibly uncommon, and it makes me honored to be in your presence. Diego Martinez, along with his security detail, the owner added. Though Diego enjoyed the applause, he knew that it was only because the man chose to omit his association with the Rangers. Last but not least, he looked to a woman sitting with Dominic, Brad, and Heather. The 3 of them seemed surprised by the brunette woman's sudden importance. A colleague of mine who traveled all the way here from the great state of Texas, musician, computer scientist, anthropological linguist, did I get that right? She gave him a thumbs up. That'll do. I'm not doing much here. I'm just his emotional support Nobel laureate. So modest. Fun fact, she owns the golden fiddle allegedly earned from a competition with the devil. If she was more concerned about her accolades, perhaps there would be a song called Johnny Went to Texas. Please welcome Dr. Tiffany Barber. She sat back down before the applause ended. I told you 2 months ago that we would see a cure for lycanthropy in your lifetimes. We are still, after all of these months, exploring the full implications of the breakthroughs we made this year. It is with your continued cooperation that we make advances toward a day where no one will be haunted by this condition. I will assure you, in case you do not feel it, history is still being made. I see on the horizon the end of our overcast sky. Soon, the darkness will be lifted, and the sun will shine upon us again. With your help, there is a very good chance that you will live in a much better world than the one you were born into. Now, I've gone on long enough. You need time to prepare. Logan, if we could have an hour or so of your time tonight, you would earn our gratitude. It is your choice, and I will not fault you either way. Logan felt put on the spot and hesitated while others at the resort migrated to their rooms to prepare. He turned to Isaiah and put his hand on his boyfriend's chest. I don't know what they expect of me. I don't know what they want. Isaiah placed his hand on top of Logan's. Babe, they just want to look at you. It's an examination. It'll be a little invasive, but you can do this. I was part of this conversation. I even went through the same thing, except, well, neither of your dads were here. Logan reluctantly made his way to his and Isaiah's room, carrying his backpack. The two of them made it inside of the room and wasted no time changing out of their human clothes and drawing the modesty garments provided by their resort. Logan's hung off of his shoulders like always. Isaiah's garment was a little bit more form-fitting, since he didn't grow very much when he shifted. Logan pulled the giant dog muzzle out of his baggage and placed it on the bed. Then he meditated and placed himself in the familiar scene where the full moon rises. Sitting down on the floor, he grows and morphs, sprouting dense white and silver fur and a fluffy tail. He opened his eyes. The colors changed. Due to his change in size, he now looked down to Isaiah instead of up at him. The massive werewolf reached for the muzzle and placed it over his snout, looking to Isaiah to help him with the buckle. After Isaiah fastened the buckle, he looked at Logan. Hey, it's going to be okay. If I can do it, you can do it. I don't know if I agree with that logic, he said. This is the first time my dad will be seeing me like this. I don't want to scare him, but how am I supposed to keep that from happening? Just be you. If you do that, you can't be bad. And I'm really sorry, but I can't be out there with you. I don't want anyone to be distracted by me. The second part was a lie, an excuse. I know where to bring you. Come with me? Isaiah asked. He was quick to walk the towering werewolf to a large, gated-off area. It was inside the massive running grounds the werewolves nicknamed the Playpen. The experts were all waiting. Most of them were unsurprised by Logan's appearance, having seen it before. Emmett and Diego's eyes opened wide in surprise, the witch petting his familiar for comfort. Diego looked at Emmett with concern. Are you 100% sure you should be here? Being a rabbit, you think you'd be frightened. Oh, that logically makes sense. The muzzle makes him look more scary than he really is. Isaiah led Logan into the area, clicking his tongue and whispering, It's okay. They'll look at you, and then you'll be free to run. Here's your daddy. Isaiah approached Diego. Here he is. Come on, Logan. Are you going to say hi? Hi. The werewolf waved, half of the group dismayed to hear him speak. Logan looked at the sky and excused himself. He didn't want to be nearby. Rocky spoke to Emmett. "Let's get started," he declared, prompting Emmett to engage his second sight and view Logan's spirit. Rocky did the same. "Ah, that's very interesting. Not at all what I expected," Emmett concurred. The two dragons were there. Arpej could examine the spirits with some effort, and he tended to get a different picture from the witch. Tiffany relied on Arpej to relay information. "The whisper is there," he said. "It's extraordinarily cruel." "Is it being violent to the malignants?" Tiffany asked. I don't see it." "What say you, messenger? Can you see it?" "I don't see anything. Anything like we saw on Isaiah or Josh. I can't find it on any part of him, not even his neck where he was wounded." Logan whimpered, feeling as though he let them down. Diego tentatively reached out and touched Logan's hand, wrapping his own hand around just one of his son's fingers. "Are you in pain?" "No, I'm fine. This doesn't hurt me." "Do you really need the muzzle?" I've bitten someone before. I don't want to risk turning you into a werewolf too." The dragon spoke up. "About that, it doesn't look like you could actually do that. You could bite or claw, but the part of you that would have infected otherwise isn't there anymore. It looks like the time you spent shifted outside of the full moon killed that thing for good." "Okay, well, this is still kind of weird." Logan looked at his dad, feeling awkward. The man became braver and examined the wolf's form. "Would you like to sit down? Maybe it'll be more comfortable." While the experts looked at Logan, the moon had risen and triggered the transformation in the rest of the werewolves, including Isaiah. The relatively short, rust and black-colored werewolf ran into his teacher, the ram. "Isaiah, there you are. Your transformation has gone very well, I see." "Levi," the werewolf stopped. "What are you doing around me? It's dangerous." "What, are you planning on hurting me?" the sheep asked. "What? No." "Then I'm safe," the ram decided. "I have something I need for you to do. The lady, Sarah, she's by herself in her room, no doubt watching Logan from the window. It's all going to be really strange for her. She could use a calming presence like yours to help her through the process. Would you knock on her door? Help her out?" Though Levi said it like a suggestion, Isaiah understood it was a command. "Yes, sir," he replied and left for the room the ram directed him to. The werewolf, while transformed, walked up the stairs to the second floor to the housing structure. He passed by a window and looked into his reflection. He wasn't as large as the werewolf that bit him years ago, but he feared he would not want to meet something like himself in a dark alley. He flashed his fangs and imagined the grotesque, unhealthy transformations he suffered in the illegal species treatment facility. A thought played out in his mind like a prophecy that assured Isaiah he will always be a monster. He heard a voice as he closed his eyes. "You are not human. Humans do not do what you did. You will kill her just as you will kill Logan." He looked forward to confront the voice and saw his reflection staring back at him. His fangs were bared and quivering with a deep, menacing growl. Warm blood decorated his face from numerous draining splatters. His long tongue harvested the copper-tasting fluid from his snout in a vain attempt to satisfy his thirst. Isaiah turned away from his reflection and whipped his head to and fro to dispel the thought. He touched his face, and to his relief he found it dry. He placed his hand on his chest and leaned against a wall for support. Once he recomposed himself, he set out to find the door to Logan's sister. Sarah leaned against the windowsill, where she watched those experts having some weird ritual with her now enormous monster of a brother. A knock at the door grabbed her attention. She walked to the door and opened it, expecting a staff member. When she saw the red and black werewolf standing there, she closed the door immediately. "Hi, it's Isaiah. I'm just checking to see how you're doing," the voice said. "You shouldn't be here." She leaned her body against the door, attempting to barricade it. "I know, but Levi wants me to check to see if you have any questions. Maybe I can put your mind at ease." Sarah breathed hard and felt her heartbeat in her ears. "How are you doing this? How are you talking to me?" I don't know. It just comes naturally to me." He waited. "Okay. If everything's okay and you don't have any questions, I won't bother you anymore." The man turned and started walking back to his room. He took 6 long steps before he heard Sarah calling out his name. She peeked her head out the door. "I do have some questions. Come back." Soon the werewolf stood close to her again. "So, is Logan into scary guys?" She pointed at him. "I can't tell if it helps or hurts the relationship. Actually, I remember a time I scared him, and he did not enjoy that." "Why did you do that?" "It's a long story. It's because I was scared too." "You scared? What could possibly scare a thing like you?" Sarah asked, looking him over. Isaiah gave his answer a little thought. "Well, me. I scare me." "But do you have any questions about Logan? Maybe what's going on?" She sighed and looked back out the window. "I don't think I want to know. This magic stuff, it squicks me out." "That's fine. We don't have to talk about it." After a moment of silence, Sarah asked, "Logan's your boyfriend, right? What kind of person is he? Really, who did my brother grow up to be?" "Well, for starters, he's brave. He's not the most experienced, but he's smart, smarter than most people. He's innocent, just too darling to think badly about. He's a little bratty at times, okay, a lot actually. He's got a smile that says everything is okay. And if he can say that after everything he's been through, well, maybe there's still hope for any of us." The woman clenched her jaw and pounded her fist on the windowsill. "I don't know how you fucked up, but I'm pretty sure I've done worse. So much worse. Logan, he saved my life, and I didn't say anything when my dad had him sent away. Do you know what that feels like? No, of course you don't. He threw his body in front of me and let himself be slashed to ribbons. And then when it came time for me to defend him, and I should have. Her voice became hoarse. Isaiah reached and grabbed for the woman's shoulder and grasped her tightly. "You were a child. You are a different person now. You know, Logan brought you up once." "Oh God, of course he did." "Shut it," the werewolf interrupted. "He remembered your birthday. We went out and got strawberry shortcake." She gasped. "Like I used to get for my birthday." "Exactly. I don't think I was a good stand-in for you." "Probably not," she replied and leaned against Isaiah. "You know, if he's got a guy like you rooting for him, he must be doing all right." The werewolf chuckled. "I'm lucky to know him." "Can we go see him now?" "I'm afraid not. This whole area is closed off. No one goes in or out until morning when everyone's shift has ended. It's safer that way. Not all of us are in control of ourselves as Logan and I." Isaiah took his hands off of Sarah's shoulder. "You didn't kill your brother. He's right there. You have another chance to accept him. And this time you'll have the benefit of the experience and all the tools that got you this far in life. And you know what? So does he. He's going to make it easier on you. He doesn't blame you. He's glad to see you. And you get to see him again in the morning. You're going to have a long relationship with him. And I get to meet a whole nother family. And I guess it's only fair he met mine. You seem okay. I should ask Levi to break the rules again and let me into the area where we agree I have been the entire time, right? Sarah chuckled. Right. No rule breaking happening here. And I certainly am not glad that you came to talk to me because that didn't happen. Right. I'll see you at breakfast. He left, then passed by his reflection again. There was no blood or bared fangs. His tail wiggled as he smiled, and found his own face friendly and reassuring. This was the werewolf he wanted to be, and realizing this was no illusion gave him hope. Morning came. The werewolves gathered back into the front room again and had breakfast. Logan noticed Dominic yawning and asked how his shift went. No complaints here. How was yours? Mine was pretty good. Pretty awkward at first. Those guys spent an uncomfortable amount of time looking at my spirit. I can't believe I played along with these folks like they think they're Miss Cleo or something. Sarah shrugged and swallowed a bite of egg. See, that's what I hate about all this magic stuff. Like, it would be different if every one of us had a device, right? And we could all look at the same thing and agree on our observations. Logan nodded. In this way, you're just forced to trust people who claim to have a rare ability. How do I know I'm not getting scammed? Dr. Harper glanced at Logan in a confused expression that Logan responded to. I get it. I've experienced magic. I don't think it's a dirty word, but I can see why some people would think so. Look, you can ask one of them now. Oh, I think they've been up all night. Emmett wheeled in a cart filled with rectangular bottles containing a black liquid, and also Rocky, who seemed to be very happy to be there. The owner, Arpej, cleared his throat. Sorry for showing up late. I insisted on making these potions easier to drink. Emmett began to pass the bottles around containing a pint of liquid. The dragon continued. I am happy to announce that we have created the very first potion able to attack the root of your lycanthropy without doing harm to you. Unfortunately, this potion will not end your lycanthropy. However, the condition will no longer infect others should you attack them, which, I would like to stress, we still want to avoid. We want to eliminate violence whenever possible. The owner looked at the bottle in his hand. This represents the combined effort of so many people over so much time. Oh, and this will also be very useful even if you're not a werewolf, because this greatly reduces your chances of being infected if you are attacked by a werewolf. Before Arpej was finished talking, Dominic gulped and lowered an empty bottle from his lips. The werewolf suddenly felt all eyes on him, and he awkwardly looked back. It, tastes like Dr. Pepper. Other people who heard this uncorked their own bottles and sniffed the potion. Then they looked to each other for courage. Brad quietly said to Heather, I'm in if you're in. Then they both drank. Logan thought about Josh, the man he infected. He wondered if that was for the best in the grand scales. After all, what are a couple of lives compared to thousands who will never have to experience this? It's much easier to say when that life isn't your own. He shook the feeling that this was too little, too late, and downed the potion. Dominic was right. It did taste like Dr. Pepper. We're calling it Dr. Harper, Tiffany said. He had a lot to do with making this happen. More people drank, and eventually, Diego and Sarah were the last two left. All of the experts, with the exception of the dragons, decided to grab breakfast and sit down until Arpej was done speaking. Isaiah sat down with Logan and his family. You guys are human. You don't have to drink it if you want to. For us werewolves, well, I know we're billing it as a choice, but it really isn't one. I would hate to needlessly force that on you. He went back to chomping down egg yolk covered hash browns. You know, Diego started. Max and I were talking the other day. We still have this case to solve for all those people in Springfield. Isaiah mentally prepared to act like he didn't know what this man was talking about. And we were thinking, we've investigated all the leads we have. We have not seen a werewolf of their description, and even if we did, it's no guarantee it's them. They may have skipped the country, maybe dead. Maxwell nodded. Yeah, I figure the only way we're going to find him is if he commits another crime. He looked at Isaiah. But it's been such a long time. What do you think the odds are that he'll do something like that again? Isaiah nearly choked on his food. Well, this is just a guess, but I honestly don't think this person is a danger to anyone anymore. Maxwell smiled knowingly. I really hope your guess is right. They finished breakfast and eventually started down the stairs again to the parking lot with their baggage. Logan gave his goodbyes to his family before opening his car door. That's when Sarah called for him. Logan? Yeah, what's up? There's something I wanted to tell you, but I wanted it to just be the two of us. Okay, what do you need to tell me? Sarah sighed and looked at nothing in particular. I wanted to say thank you. Yeah, no problem. Honestly, those other guys did all the real work. No, Logan. Thank you for saving my life. You barely survived. I would not have. But also, I'm sorry. I'm sorry because you're going to have to deal with me always being afraid that every time you leave, it'll be like the last time. I will want to try to do all the things that I think I should have done when I saw you last. Really? That's such a relief. I was so sure that you were afraid of me because I was a werewolf. No, not at all. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong, you're scary big, but I want to see you. Okay, I'm actually jealous of Dad. He got to get really close and even hold your hand, and it doesn't feel fair. Is that really all you want? You say that like it's a small thing. Logan, more than anything, I want to prove to myself that it's safe to be around you. And I'm not going to really know that if I can only view you from a distance with a barrier between us, keeping the danger at bay. Okay, well, we can make a plan to meet each other again. And you can do that. Emmett took the elevator down to the parking lot, feeling too tired to trust his footing. Arpej offered to fly him home, but Josh would be stuck bringing the truck home all by himself. The werebunny carried Rocky with him as he sat on the passenger seat. He held him while he buckled up, tried to get comfortable, and settled in the least uncomfortable position. Josh climbed into the driver's seat of the truck and looked at the awkward position the bunny was in. Hey, maybe you'd be happier if you took your legs off? The witch's husband suggested, now aware of some of Emmett's abilities. You wouldn't mind? Not at all. I'll just wrap a blanket around you so your parts don't roll around. Emmett smiled and removed his legs where his thighs met his hips. He lay down on his side and rested his head on one of his thighs while wrapping his arms around the rest of his legs. Rocky curled up next to his witch before Josh draped a blanket over him and strapped them in with a seatbelt. Dr. Harper chatted with Arpej over coffee. So, what's next for the great dragon Arpej? I think I'm going to take a little break. What? What happened to the workaholic I know? The doctor asked. Well, I've been putting off a lot of things. The trouble with being immortal is you never take time to create a bucket list. I think it's time to live a little. Be careful, you might like it too much. You might not want to stop. They laughed. Maxwell was getting ready to fly when he saw Tiffany waving to him. Are you leaving by air as well? Yeah, it's kind of how I get around. It's cheap. That's so frugal, the dragon approached the bird. Say, I can't help but notice something when I'm around you. Oh, what's that? Well, I like to consider myself a bit of a musician, and you can say I have a passion for it outside of the technicals. I get the feeling that there's a song in your heart. I can feel it. It wants to be sung. Max shook his head and scoffed. Yeah, I'm working on something. It's not ready yet. If you don't mind me asking, who is it supposed to be ready for? I don't know. Whoever's listening? Maxwell, do you ever sing in the shower? The doctor asked. Yeah, I do sometimes. So you do just sing even when no one is listening? Maybe it's even better if no one's listening? How about you give that a try? You might be surprised at what you find. Yeah, I'll try it, replied the magpie. Each of them met the day, and the world changed like they did. They were older now, another summer gone, freed from their chains, awakened from their dreams, shedding fears like autumn leaves, each of them holding on to their own hopes.